All right, here we are. This is episode maybe 3, doesn't matter, who cares? And I have a couple guys from the Bible study that I attend every Tuesday night at
RJ Boyle Studio.
There we go. And you are?
RJ Boyle.
Okay. Wow. And you are?
Jess Buffington.
Gotcha. These are two guys. How many guys do you think we have attend on a regular basis?
15 on average.
More. So you're right. There's about 15 to 18. There'll be maybe there's 20 to 25, but you get some that aren't there every day. So 15 on average.
Correct.
Okay. So what I wanted to do, I want to talk about like what is a men's Bible study and kind of how we do it. Obviously, there's a bunch of ways to do it and the importance of a men's Bible study. So there's a few things I thought of. So men's Bible study, can you guys think of what is the most important thing that we must agree on before we move forward in our Bible study? Is it coming to you right away? I'm kind of hitting you off the cuff.
Like when you say move forward, what do you mean? Like what?
So, okay, great. I want to talk about some of the details of what like our men's Bible study has, and then maybe what a good one might exhibit. But before you get together, it's critical that you almost have some sort of mission statement. We had talked about one before. Otherwise, who knows where you're going to go with this. So kind of what I'm getting at is that it's important we all agree that it's by grace alone, faith alone, that Jesus Christ is Lord. Mm-hmm. Okay? I feel like that is the cornerstone, that is the rock. But then moving forward, I notice and I enjoy that we have disagreement, right? And I think every study should have disagreement. And so with that, how do we navigate? How have you guys noticed that we navigate our disagreements? Like, how often has there been heated exchange? Like, how do you guys notice ways that we navigate disagreement, and maybe what you would recommend to other guys that want to have a study, how they might do so as well?
Jess, you want to handle that one first? Or you want
Well, I think it's important to note kind of that our Bible study, just the structure of it, is more of an open forum than maybe some Bible studies that are out there. Right. And I think the benefit to our Bible study with those debates or arguments is that there's such a wide range of history. There's the guys that have grown up Catholic, right. 50 plus years. There's guys that have been saved last year. There's former Muslim turned, Christian right. that brought that same right. Fury to his Christianity. So right. I think with that open exchange and open exchange of ideas and things like that, I think it breeds that maybe disagreement, right. or perspectives that vary so widely. As far as how often that happens, I mean, I think you get a good disagreement maybe once a month where there's like a true all right, we're fighting this out. Let's take it out by the willow tree and right. Figure this out. Right.
Okay, so maybe that's because it doesn't seem to escalate to where you think guys are going to maybe want to take it outside. I've had a few times I wanted to, but how is it that we've navigated? Because I think we disagree almost every time on something. But how is it that we can have that many guys seem to contribute? Some guys are quiet nearly every time. I'm noticing the last few, we almost get something from 90% of the guys. It's weird.
Here's what I would say, and it's a very interesting thing to look at, because when you say Bible study, you say a collection of men that are sitting around a square table or whatever it might be. But realistically, when you think about the nature of our Bible study, you have to remember a couple of things. When you're talking about disagreement amongst men, right? So a couple of things that come to mind. One is the comfort level. When you join a group, let's say, and so if you're a guy searching for something, you've reached a point in your life where you feel like you need more, you need something, you're looking for something, whether it's faith-based, whether it's something that you're struggling with, whatever it might be. But when you come to that decision where you're like, you know what, I really need to find something, and you decide, hey, I'm gonna take a step in that direction. I think it's before you ever get to the ability to disagree, you got to get to the ability to be able to attend a Bible study, attend a group meeting. And what happens with ours at this point, we're all comfortable with each other. So that's something you look at and go, hey man, that wasn't an overnight thing for us. That was earned. That was time spent. And so when we look at that and you go, my gosh, we can actually, yes. And it's funny because what you're saying, Heath, when you think about last night's Bible study, and you think about 16 guys in a room, I think when we stopped reading over a 15 to 20 minute span over discussing a paragraph, every single guy had something to say without asking him. So when you have that many people in tune to what you're talking about and comfortable enough to be able to say something, there's a lot of factors in that.
Yep.
That makes sense?
It does. Also, it's almost like we always seem to protect someone who does want to offer up an opinion. Murph will even almost, he'll want to throw a disclaimer. Guys, I don't know where this is coming a little bit from left field, but that's where I am. But I'm thinking this. He has a comfort to just say something. And it's a lot of fun because usually he's spot on, right? And every now and then, hey, Murph, it's really, we're thinking this. So there's a comfort level. And you also mentioned we'll discuss a paragraph. So critical in what we do is it is based upon a reading. And we do it like an expository way. Like we move through chapter by chapter through a book. And we seem to have continued like through multiple books in a row. Sometimes we'll jump around Old to New Testament. But as long as we are reading from the Word and not just a bunch of opinions, and we don't even do workbooks. Not that they're wrong. Right. I had a missionary say, we don't really have study books. We go top shelf. And he held the Bible. He's like, we study from this. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I guess we create an atmosphere to where whether you're a new believer or a seasoned saint, you hopefully feel free to offer something. Okay, so one other thing, let me ask you. We have this group of guys that are relatively comfortable with each other, but there is a decent amount of guys who are brand new. Like, Jess, you brought a younger guy recently. Do we make him talk? Do we make him, I don't even know his name. That's what's terrible. Sorry, buddy, if you're watching.
That's awesome, man. Really cool.
Terrible. We've never required him to talk.
Right.
Okay. So how do you guys, is that important? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that, I kind of came in seeking last year as well. You brought me in and, I don't know.
Hunted you down?
Didn't have anything else to do on Tuesday nights. So, I was, seeking, and I knew there was something out there that I needed. And I had a lot of issues, that I was battling, in my own head. Right. And so, you have that time period where you just kind of observe. You just kind of listen, kind of feel out, is this, what is going on here? What is in here?
Right.
I grew up reading this, forcefully, in Catholic school, but I never really understood anything I was reading. I never connected all of the connections that are in there, right. and everything that's interwoven. So you're starting to listen and you're like, okay, I can relate to these guys. Yeah. I can hear these guys, and now I'm surrounded by guys I need to be surrounded by. Now I'm starting to see the passion that these guys have, and I'm just building the respect, and now I'm starting to build the hunger for what's in this book.
Right.
And to be able to live this out. And now I have men around me that are husbands and fathers and different business owners, different things like that. All the things that I'm trying to navigate, in my own self.
Right.
and I have this blueprint just sitting around me. And so, you stay quiet and you just kind of observe and you just kind of listen. And then for me, it lit a fire in me to get to know more about what's in that book. And then you start to somebody says something, like they don't pray when their family is over, and you're like, hold on a second. I'm going to call that guy out.
Who was that guy? Hey, that's one of two things you as, I don't want to call you a newer believer. Who knows what you are, right?
Yeah.
But a newer recommit, let's say.
Yeah.
Those are two things from this newer recommit who that you confronted me, that which you alluded to earlier was me. He called me not a very nice word, and he says, you don't pray with your family, you bleep. And I couldn't argue. So since I've had some times where I've prayed with my family, I had to go back and report, all right, guys, Jess, the new recommit guy, was completely right. And you also said something I've used so many times. It was so profound, and it had to do with judging. I reminded you of this. But people say, well, you're not supposed to judge. Don't judge me. And you made it so clear when you said, well, I'm judging your sin. God will judge you. I'm judging your sin. I mean, right now, if I punch you in the face, he's like, bro, you can't do that. Don't judge me. Heath, I don't know where you are with the Lord, but I'm telling you, don't punch him in the face. You just made it clear. So these are two small things that, like, with a little bit of humility, it's amazing how like a seasoned saint with gray hair can learn so much from someone younger. And that, I feel like that is so foundational to our study. There's no designated leader. There's no preacher. There's no book other than Top Shelf. And there's a bunch of people that will defend and make sure we stay the course, not get too contentious with a disagreement, keep it peaceful, but be free to disagree. And the other thing is, and this is common, how is it that we address the rambler? There's always a rambler.
Always. We
only have 90 minutes plus or minus. Mm-hmm. So how do we navigate allowing personal stories to be told? Because I've said it before. There's been times I hijacked nearly the entire 90 minutes because I was so broken over a family issue, right? So that will happen. But how do we navigate the rambler?
But think about it, what you're saying right now. So here's an interesting thing, because the nuances and all the little things are big things in a group setting, right? So you have 10 guys, 15 guys around the table, and you have a rambler. Before you get to that point, when you have a group of guys, one of the things that I noticed just after all the years of doing it, right? So initially, we had a much bigger draw because we were putting it out there. So the personalities and the issues that people were having were much different than they are now, even though several of the guys in our group have addiction problems, let's say, for instance. So what I noticed early when we started doing this was a lot of it had to do with, it was like an AA. People were coming and it was more based off of their addiction, and it wasn't so faith drawn, right? So right. They were trying to deal with an issue. So really establishing the fact that it's about faith, it's about Jesus Christ. Those are the things that, to me, when we start to do this now, and you bring somebody in and they start to speak. So there's got to be a moderator. There's got to be somebody that can basically say, in this case, it's a lot of times it's you, and sometimes it's me, and let's continue reading. And listen, you're not going to make everybody happy. There's going to be people that come to a Bible study that are like, this is definitely not for me. Oh, he talked over me, and they're sensitive and they'll never come back. But at the same time, you have to have a dynamic of organization, and there's got to be a guy like you that can moderate this. That's important. That's hugely important because, as you know, one of the guys that we have constantly talks, and I notice that you're constantly bringing us back.
Right.
Rabbit trails, rabbit holes, whatever you will, in conversations where we're talking about faith or scripture, and all these guys are at different levels, and one guy might be light years ahead and goes down a path where we're like, you'll look at me and go, yeah, let's reel it back in. So that's hugely important when you're dealing with Bible study.
And for reasons, we only have so much time, and if you say yes to him, a rambler, he might need to go to breakfast tomorrow. But by saying yes to him and he's kind of not helping the rest, you've then said no to the other 14 that we can't get back into the word. So it's relatively delicate, but that's important. So if you're doing a men's study, don't let it ramble, because guys won't want to come back. They're like, I don't know where they went.
But you're going to get that. You're going to get flow. You're going to get guys that won't come back. You're going to get guys that may have spent time there and just one thing was said wrong by somebody and a personality turns them off. But think about all the different churches I've gone to over the years, the different types of Baptist, Catholic, all this, and moving just to observe. And when you're in these fellowship meetings with men are uncomfortable with other men if they don't. It takes a certain personality to be able to, like you said, some guys don't talk. Mm-hmm. Some guys sit there for weeks and don't say anything. So
Right.
some guys don't have a personality to be able to do that. But if they get to a certain point in their life when they know it's important for them to start, you start to see them step out. And that's where it changes. And I think that comfort level for a group like that, that's where, when it's run like it is now. Last thing I want to mention to you, and it's very interesting. Over the last several weeks, we've had new guys, right?
Yeah.
So I cannot remember in this group over a 15-year span since we've been doing this, the 3 or 4 or 5 guys come into a group that are actually rock solid. And you're like, because you're trying to figure out, what is this guy's deal? Where did he come from? What's his background?
Right.
What's his religious
You're
affiliation?
cringing when he opens his mouth like,
okay. and all of a sudden you get this guy that has spent time in the Word.
like, oh, that was good.
And it's really good. It's awesome.
There's a few things. If you're going to do a study, you can have your own ground rules, mission statement. But what are some things you guys have noticed that we try to not talk about? Things like we really don't go too much into politics. Mm-hmm. Some guy may want to. We've decided not with our 90 minutes. And you mentioned the different denominations. We really don't discuss denominational differences. Again, this could be great. This may be all you focus on at your study. Maybe all it is how politics relates to the Bible. I don't know. But with ours, that's what we've determined we want to keep away from. We'll steer out. What are some other things you guys can think of that we try not to discuss or get into, or is that just the two major ones? Like, again, we try to keep a focus on the Word, but what are some other things that seem to have disrupted us before that don't seem to be best?
Jess, I'll let you take this one for sure.
You've been around 14 years longer than me.
But as a new guy coming in, like, what's your feel like for it? Do you feel like, I don't really want to talk about that? I would say, yeah, politics.
Yeah, politics. I mean, there's even been discussions on, obviously, like, when things are happening, there's short discussion at the beginning and we move on to the Word.
Right.
It's not that it's just don't speak the word of blank, but
right.
And there's been discussion about denominations, and religion, at the end of the day. And I do think that we kind of hit an impasse on those. I think that we start talking and we start debating and we start sharing ideas. And I think at some point everyone kind of looks around and says, all right, we're right where we started. Back to the Word.
Back to the Word.
And so, yeah, those are definitely the two main things that I've observed. I can't think off the top of my head of anything else that's really been off limits.
That's the beauty of it. The beauty of it is the ability that the stuff we talk about in a comfortable room with guys is freaking amazing. So to me, it's blown my mind, the comfort level of guys when they're grounded enough in their faith, they're trying, and the stuff that's come out in these meetings is just next level. And
so can you tell me the difference? This is my last question about the study. What would you say is the main difference between church on Sunday morning and our study? And if you could only do one, you should do both, but explain maybe the difference and maybe kind of what you get from our study.
I don't really think it's close. I think when you're doing small group with men and let's just say we have a comfortable group of men that are open to be able to discuss, sexuality, sexual situations, which is huge, which that becomes, you don't hear that in church. That's kind of a no-no in a lot of congregations and a lot of different things. So, yeah, no, I mean, when you're talking about weakness, men's weakness, that is, where you actually get a chance to talk about it, and listen to other men, listen to a guy actually say something like that it's just so powerful, man. And like for me, that's what it's been all about. It's really helped me immensely. Not that going to church doesn't, but you're not getting that
right
from going to Sunday.
You know what I notice is cool is back to noting the differences in personality. There'll be guys who are more forthcoming about. There might be a guy that says, you know what, I get so frustrated how often I'm looking at my phone at things I shouldn't look at, and maybe he'll offer a little bit of detail. And there could be 13 others, 15 others just completely silent. There's still incredible value because every one of the other ones are like, me too. Can you please keep talking? I really want to hear this, but I'm going to pretend like it's just you. Go ahead, please. Right?
Yes.
And so I would say there is definitely more detail and guys being more forthcoming in our study, more than we would here on a podcast, right? And then even there's a next level to it when there might be two guys that say, hey, I shared this in the study. Let's go to breakfast. And so it's like these layers. So I kind of look at it as, okay, there's church, right? There's church. No, what are you doing?
All right. He heard about church and he wanted to.
Yeah, right. He's like, church.
Yes, thank God.
Please don't edit that out, right? No. So I want you to see how I didn't respond like, hey, man, we got a podcast going. I'm like, what are you doing? And so now you know, my poor kids. Anyways. All right. So you have church where it's really not so intimate. Maybe a pastor says something, but it's not. That's just not the setting. Then there's a men's study. We're going to get a little bit more in detail. And then there's maybe a one-on-one, right? So there's the value. If you're looking for something a little more intimate, if you will, get into a good men's study. And then if you want real accountability, whatever, get with another guy, because you can really get even closer. So like last night, I forget what it is we're reading. I always forget what we read. We're reading, and it said something about make sure to abstain from sexual immorality. And there was like this pause in the group, like, oh boy. Now what are we going to talk about? And that, okay, so as an example, here's our trial run, boys. We addressed that a little bit. We stayed relatively vanilla. And then I'll get together with certain guys and I'll go super strong, super deep into it, because it seems like they'll look both ways like, thank you, let's talk about this. But with regards to lust, like what are the most common triggers that you think, and let's just say the obvious, what is tell me the difference. Any of you guys, can you guys tell me what's the difference between lust and just having a desire? In other words, if that was my son that walked in, if it was an incredibly hot girl that walked in, I might have a desire. I've not sinned yet. So when is it that I sin? Like when does this, what's in me turn into sin? Like when Jesus called lusting adultery, I mean, I'm not committing adultery if something shows up. But how would you redneck define lust? Like, go ahead, Jess.
I think kind of my policy, if you will,
right,
to go legalistic on it, is that obviously, that door opens. We don't know who's coming through. We look.
Right.
If all of a sudden I see and there's a desire, but I decide maybe to
keep
linger
looking
on that look a little longer,
right,
because I want to get a good look.
Right.
My desire is now tipping over into that lust.
Okay. And at its core, what is wrong with that? Let me play devil's advocate for sure. What is wrong with that? For the guys, the Christian guys out there, they got all kinds of stuff on their phone. They're like, nah, I don't think I'm going to get rid of it. Who continue to linger and look. Like, can you help me out? Like, what's wrong with that? Like, why is that a bad thing? Why is this lust thing? Why did Jesus call it adultery? Where's the harm in that? Like, you're a married man. Like, what does that do for your marriage? Like,
yeah, I mean, yeah, there's just a block on intimacy, on emotional intimacy, on physical intimacy. All those things just will start deteriorating that. Where you should be looking, to your wife,
right,
you're now looking somewhere else. Now there's going to be a comparison. There's going to be you're deciding which one looks better.
Right.
Your wife is, God chose your wife for you.
Right.
That is the most perfect thing you could possibly look at.
Right.
For you.
Mine
is for me. Yours
right,
is for you. At least it's for you. So,
right,
you're coveting something that he doesn't have. He has for somebody else.
Right.
And so, yeah.
I already know what the guy's going to say. Well, I don't know, man. Have you seen my wife? I had a guy say that to me once. He's like, she's had a few kids and she just doesn't look the way she used to look. And I looked at him. I was like, oh my gosh, get a mirror. You're fat. Go look in the mirror. You're fat. You're disgusting. I can't imagine looking at you with your shirt off. Like, what are you talking about? Are you coming down on her? Like, most men that are looking at stuff apparently don't have a mirror. Like, do you think you look like you did years ago? You probably looked bad then too, right?
Right.
But literally, it's so unfair to women because as you're saying this, I can hear the guy say, oh no, but what I'm looking at is so much better than my wife. You may say your wife is so beautiful, but mine, I think it's just like food. Like if you only eat the foods that you're supposed to be eating, it's amazing how good like chicken and rice taste. Versus if you're just always at the at the buffet on the cruise, you know, it's like you're never satisfied. So your poor wife she can't compare it to whatever you're staring at all the time. So I don't know. I kind of see it's a disservice, but at its core, can you guys think why is lust? Why is it wrong? Like we see kind of some of the damage, but why is it wrong? Like at its core, what do you think the main problem is?
You know, the difference between lust and desire, you're saying? Mm-hmm. Is that the question? Yeah. You know, there are two. I've been married for 33 years, right, to my high school sweetheart, and you know when I think about a daily thing, obviously, beautiful women or somebody walking down the street or you know, going out on a boat, let's say in my world where, you go out on a boat on a Saturday and, I mean, these girls don't even wear anything anymore. And so, you know, one of the things I would say is, you know, as a man now at my age, when I look at lust and desire, you know, I would say it's all throughout the Bible. It's one of the main things that men are going to fall to, right. You know, sexual immorality, and it's everywhere. So in the Bible, so we can speak in a group of men and know that probably 90 to 100% of the guys are struggling with the same thing. Right. So let's be clear in saying that everybody's struggling with that look, right? That first look. Now it's the second and third look, and it's maybe the look later on when you're thinking about that becomes lust. So right. If it becomes a focus, right? If what you saw becomes a focus in your mind, and that's where I think there's a fine line, right? So that being said, like for me, and I'm not. Listen, we're not always successful, but I would say, you know, and you talked about triggers, right? You know, triggers and things that, you know, I don't want to go to Lake Boca on a Saturday and put myself in that. We do. We do, but we don't. But it's not really the best thing for an issue if you're having that issue, right? So, and we're, you know, we love our wives, you know, and so the beauty of that is, you know, to me, when I think about it, I have 2 girls, right? So I have young girls. So if I feel like I'm crossing that bridge, one of my triggers is I have a daughter that's older than that, or I have my daughters. I'm thinking about my daughters. I'm a father. So what would my wife think of that? Would that be okay if she was sitting here and I looked like that? So I think there's a fine line there. It's hard to define that line at times, but at the end of the day, if that's something you struggle with, you're putting yourself in a position to do it a lot of times because you're going places that maybe you shouldn't. Right. And B, what is it how do you battle that? So I don't know if that was one of your next questions, but the battle then becomes, okay, the second and third look, how would my wife react to that? So it's almost like the light switch. If I know that it's my daughters and my wife, and I train my mind, like change the tapes here on what you do, right? Does that make sense? It does, and it falls in line with, I believe, about 7 of the 10 commandments are actually pursuing after things that you want that don't belong to you, whether it's stealing or coveting or adultery. These are things, someone else's life, that's murder. Like, it's literally saying whatever I have is not enough, and that you may not be married right now. And so it's okay to think, wow, Lord, I'm going to pray for a wife. And if you are married, your wife is not enough, and that you want something that doesn't belong to you, which could be another man's wife or future wife.
And that is, and it's one thing to have the want or the desire. That's disgusting enough. You've not been in sin yet. But then when you start to pursue this in your mind and play, now you just began the sin tape. Therefore, where's this going? It's going to incredible frustration. And one thing I tried to mention a little bit last night is hopefully it's not always about bad dog. We're just bad dogs. It's analyzing, saying, why would God say this? Why would he have this as a rule? And it's got to be because he's got something so much better. So if you have faith and you start to look into, okay, Lord, I'm convinced this is not your will for me to be lusting after someone that does not belong to me. Can you begin to reveal to me why that is and how there is a better experience beyond what is typical, whether it's Christian men or certainly non-Christian men, and just start to dig deep into that. Because I'm so convinced God has something better for you that certainly does not look good to the world, and it doesn't look good to most Christian men as well. There's something there. And then again, what may be a rule for you is not necessarily a rule for me. And so there needs to be freedom. You might have a guy that is so healthy, he can't look at the girl in Target, right? Like, it's like, whoa. And there's another guy who's like not that healthy, and he can look at all kinds of things that doesn't even get him going. There's no lust happening. So I can't say, don't do that, because he's not even triggered yet. Reminds me that there's an old guy I was working for, and he's near 80 years old. We were down by the beach, and a really attractive girl came riding a bike down the street. And all the crew was like, wow, look at her. And they said, what do you think about that, Bob? And Bob goes, I'm like a dog chasing a car. I mean, I catch it. What do I do with it? You know? So there are guys that don't have the same struggle.
That's right.
It's a very personal thing. And it's that honesty between you and the Lord, knowing there's a fresh new start every day. So how would you explain, or how would you, if someone's admitted to this, how do you detox? Like, how do you begin to get a pure mind? How does that work? Because it's one thing we all agreed, and you say, you know what? All right, dude, let me try this God's way thing. How would you effectively begin a detox to get a cleaner mind so there are no fresh imprints of what you've seen? Because you have a fresh imprint, it's hard to erase it when you're with your wife. It was just something you looked at days or hours prior. How do you detox and get on the Lord's path? What are ways you guys think you can make that happen? A guy that's serious, not a talker.
Yeah. So obviously identifying where the consumption is. That was for me. It was, I justified for years what was on my Instagram, who I was following, what my algorithm had, perfectly, constructed for me. Right. And, I would always, I don't know why those come up. My wife would see it and, I don't know. Oh yeah. I followed that because, they posted something funny, but I had to follow it to be able to see it. Somebody sent it to me, and now, I don't know how that got on there, Right. And then it was just kind of like, yeah, no, actually I'm just following this because, that's what I look at. Right. Yeah. So, the only way I was able to get around that, I was like, well, maybe I can change the algorithm. What if I start searching dog pictures or something, maybe I'll get a lot of dogs coming up. No, right. It just, turned out to be girls with dogs, so it didn't work. So I deactivated all my social media and I left the app on my phone, and I made it a rule because my fingers just did it automatically. Unlock your phone Instagram. Let's check Instagram real quick, see what's on there. Right. So I did that, but I said every time I open Instagram, it's just going to be the login screen because I don't have an account anymore. I have to go to the Bible. I have to read one chapter of whatever book. And the first day that I did it, I read 18 chapters of the Bible because I opened my phone 18 times. And I was like, no matter what I'm doing, I had time to scroll. I got time for the Word. And
that's awesome.
Day by day, that number went down. And I'm like, well, now I got to actually intentionally read the Bible because I've retrained my brain that I had time for social media. I got time for the Bible. And so I took it away. And that's where the majority of that distraction consumption was in social media. So you take that away, but then you also make a rule for yourself. And again, it's, because I was always I would love to read the Bible. I just don't have time.
Right.
You know? And then you look at your usage on your phone and you're like, oh, 4 hours yesterday on Instagram.
Aren't we all such frauds? Okay. So what that is, that's not a consequence. That's not a punishment. You know, it's with Christ, he paid for our sin. It's not that non-believers like, what? You guys, forget it. But honestly, it's not about, well, let me punish myself, Lord, because I did this. It's more about the training of discipline.
Yeah, I was feeding myself, not
right.
There was no punishment there for me. You know, it was like that was feeding.
Right. So I like that actually better than the thing that I've said. I think mine, what I say is maybe more harsh, but I was meeting with a guy and he's like, well, I just can't stop. I said, okay, just do me a favor. Every time you look at it, just go 36 hours with no food, just water. Because, well, I don't want to do that. Okay, then you're not serious. Stop talking to me, please. You're not serious. You're just a talker. No, I really want to stop this. Okay, then go 36 hours, just water. Or do 10 push-ups or what you have, read a chapter. It's not about punishment. It's that's how you would train a good police dog. You know, it's about almost something where there's a benefit. Pick your thing. And that's actually what's so beautiful is that it's not about, let me write a program for you. No, it's about hearing guys' ideas and then in your heart adopting something that you know has incredible benefit. So that's a great idea.
That's a good one. So one of the things, so how you deal with those moments, right? So for me, when I think about that particular deal, and you hit it nail on the head when you say discipline, right? So when I think about it, and I know it's come up in Bible study a lot, obviously there's you're at the beach or you're on the boat and there's 3 girls on a boat to your right on the starboard side, and you see them coming, and obviously they're not wearing much, right? So there's this challenge. Okay, now to me, the discipline challenge becomes, okay, I saw it, I shouldn't be looking, and now I'm gonna look to the left. It's a conscious freaking thing that happens every single day down here in South Florida, especially on the water, where you're like, okay, I'm gonna look to the right, and as they pass, and you look back center, you're like, that was a victory. That was a victory for this second right now. And you know what happens? I'm going to tell you what happens, and I feel this. Man, when you do that, you don't partake in the view, the second and third look, and you don't look at it, man, it makes you feel so good inside that you actually had some discipline to not look. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I think, and the more you do that, the more you're like, man, it makes you feel so much better as a man. You know, obviously with your wife around or your girlfriend around and that kind of thing, there's definitely, you know, you don't want to look. Right. So, but I'm talking about when you're alone or when you're with guys who are all looking. Happens a lot on boats, especially with doing charters, and you're in the inlet and there's 15 boats around you. So it's that power, it's that discipline to do it. And once you keep doing it, a couple of things happen. One, obviously you're disciplined enough to not do it, so you're getting this confidence, right? And then the other guys are noticing it as well. So that's an interesting thing as well. So, you know, I don't always succeed in that, but when I'm with a group of guys that are doing that or make a comment, like you just said, they're making a comment about this girl that's coming up on the right-hand side here, and I'm purposely looking left, you know, guys can feel that, you know,
right.
And that's where it changes. They're like, man, there's something it's different about this dude. You know what I mean? And so, does that make sense?
It does. What's so nice, I think we're in agreement here, is that one, if I say I don't look, well, now you're someone who looks and lies. Okay, so don't say that.
Right.
Someone who says, you know what? Every time I look, I got a consequence. Yeah, right. No, you don't. If there's anything that smells like an arrogance, or watch out because it's coming, right? Our heart is that I'm trying, and I try to say, I didn't look now. Give me the strength, Lord, not to look next time.
There you go.
And that's it.
Right.
I'm not making promises. From now on, I'll never. It's just, and then when you start to realize the benefit, it's like someone who started finally watching their diet, losing weight, and they're noticing, I'm feeling pretty good that I shed 5, 7, 8 pounds. Now this train's got moving. And you start to realize, wow, I don't remember the last time I really stared at something I shouldn't. It's amazing. There's just so many benefits. And so and then hopefully you are very kind to others and understanding that you aren't there always, and that you can encourage brothers around you with no arrogance. And we're getting back to, I think that's what our study is. Because I know if someone came into our study with an arrogance, they would get checked by all 14 guys. The quiet guy would now start talking. Like, I don't think so. Yeah. Right?
Just a couple things that I was thinking about as we were visiting, talking. The thing when I think about Bible studies, and over the years, because we post it, because we share it on a story, and we'll put, Thessalonians 3 or whatever, and great Bible study last night, we do have people reach out. I wish I lived in your neighborhood so I could attend. And it's something that we actually talked about. Is this something we could record or video? Some of the guys were a little offended by that. They didn't want to be able to do that, which I completely get, especially given the nature of our Bible study. But I think one of the things, if you're in a location and you're saying, how do I get this going? So whether you're a fishing guy or you're a weightlifting guy, or you're a gym guy, and you want to start this. So how do you do this? So, to me, obviously you have a friend, some sort of a friend network. And if nobody's really involved in that, there's got to be a way that you can reach out, even to us, where we could say, hey, maybe you could call this guy. We know some people in that area, let's say, where you can meet. But I think the fundamental thing you have to have, if it's faith-based like we're talking about, Keith, is you got to have somebody that's at least has a somewhat of a sound scripture base, right? So when you open the Bible to most people, it's like deer in the headlights. You don't, they're not, they might have heard it, in Catholic upbringing, right, or whatever, denomination they are. But I think for the basis of starting something, if you're in fishing and you're around the boats and you can put out a post, hey, looking to get a men's group / Bible study together in Jupiter. The social media is so strong these days, and you're going to get people that reach out to you. But again, let's just say you say, okay, let's decide on a location. Well, I had a guy say, well, we were going to do it at a tournament. Well, we're going to meet on back on one of the boats, and all of a sudden there was 12 guys there. And so it was awesome. And but at least just that somebody has a basis for scripture, right? Because most of the time you're going to get asked questions. Well, if awful things happen, why do they happen? So in the nature of that kind of stuff, there's got to be, you follow me?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
And so there's got to be that comfort. There's got to be that ability to be able to meet. I don't know you, and so what does that look like? Hey, Heath, how you do? So I'm RJ. Good to meet you, by the way. So, I was raised Catholic, and so the introductions and where you've been and maybe what you're struggling with a little bit, but, when we do bring a guy in, we're usually saying, okay, now.
Who'd you come with?
Who sponsored you, or who, which is kind of important at this point of where we are, to keep it real, right?
Yeah.
Because we've had people come in that are really, they shouldn't be in the group.
Right.
That's a real thing. People that, there's several times where I can think about certain guys that were, let's just say, an Old Testament guy that didn't believe in all the New Testament teachings. And so it really created a weirdness.
So you're addressing something that your Bible study was built a little more organically. Another way to do this would be through, obviously, your church. So what's kind of neat with ours is we all come from different churches, right? Some don't even go to church. And that makes it cool. A lot of Bible studies, the guys are actually attending the same church, and they've looked on the bulletin and they see there's men's groups and there's house. And so churches have done a good job of finding groups within your zip code. And what you'll need to do then is don't feel bad about trying multiple studies, because you may realize, they talked about the Bible, but that's just not my cup of tea the way they were. So don't feel bad about trying multiple ones through your church bulletin. That would be another way. And then if you are lacking a seasoned saint, the gray-bearded guy who may know his Bible a little better than the brand new believer, then that might be a time that you guys would agree on going through some sort of workbook that has a little bit of homework each week, and then you can discuss the homework. Again, that's not kind of how we do it, but there are other options other than just the way we enjoy doing it. I tend to obviously like how it's done in your shop.
I like the non-denominational kind of approach, if you will. Just remember, I was raised Catholic, and going to Tennessee, just to find the Word, to find certain places, attended a Methodist church, a Baptist church, whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, we don't discuss really at length specifics about religion. This isn't about religion. This is about the Word. This is about Jesus Christ, right? So for us, when I think about that, and because I've attended community Bible study, and you've got to get the homework done, and you didn't do it, so you're rushing through.
Right.
So that's a completely different field to me.
Okay.
And to me, when you hit the word organic, right? When you put a group of guys together that becomes organic, where that it's not all Catholic based and it's not all Baptist based, and so I feel like that it's not and listen, it's wonderful and people get a lot out of it. What we're talking about, based on what we have, is a home study, right, with whatever denomination you are, and we're focused on biblical readings and then discussing the Bible, and it's focused and it's hyper-centered on that. It's not hyper-focused on, rituals in a Catholic church.
Or the politics thing.
No.
Hey, Jess, what were you kind of kicking and screaming before you came to his study, and what were you expecting? In other words, did you just go to make your wife happy?
Yeah, what do you feel?
What have you experienced before? Because, let me say real quick, because I've gone to the ones that you've talked about that were through the church, and I'm like, if I snuck out right now, would they notice? You're like,
exactly.
It drives me crazy. Other people were loving it.
Right.
But you had the guy that was up front and he was strumming his guitar. Then he seemed to close his eyes and play the same thing over. And everyone seemed to love it. And there was nothing but carbs laid out. And I don't want it. It was just so, I wanted to get out of there. So I had a bad experience. Many Bible studies I attended that way. So that when I found yours, I was like, wow, this is cool.
Right.
How was it? What was your experience, Jess, coming into his study? What'd you expect? And how were you surprised? Like, you're still there, but so
yeah.
What's your insight on Bible studies?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, again, I was in a season where I was in a very, very, very dark place, like a very dark place. And Jen, obviously, has known you forever and connected me with you. And I had never met you before I even came to the Bible study. You just you knew I needed it, just from what you were told. So yeah, I came in there very hungry, but still very lost and confused. Mm-hmm. But I knew I needed to be around something like that. I knew that it was a step in the right direction. I had some idea, some faith, some things like that. Didn't truly know Christ, didn't know the Bible. And then when I came in the first time, I'm like, I coming from the Catholic background, and again, not getting too deep into denominations, but the reason I turned away from my faith was because of the Catholic Church, and especially early 2000s stupidity that was going on, and in the news every week. And it was like, oh, this is who I have to listen to every week. Mm-hmm. The pedophile, like this is who God, that was my perspective. This is who
right.
God put in charge
right.
of teaching me how to act.
Right.
I'm done with God. And so coming into the Bible study, it's like, the cynic in me is like, who's the pervert at the front that's going to be teaching us tonight? And all of a sudden it's just these guys, and they're very humble and they're very hungry. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. Okay. It's similar to the church that I go to now. Like my wife, Melissa, she tried to get me to go to a lot of different churches. And every one of them, I'm just like, I don't like that guy. I don't like that guy. And I go to my church, and the guy, like, he's talking about his testimony, and he got, saved while he was in BSO, serving a drug trafficking charge. And I'm like, that's my guy right there.
Right.
Like, let me hear more, right. Like I can, not that I'm a drug trafficker, but I can relate to that. Right. I can relate to our Bible study of a bunch of guys that got dirt under their nails,
right,
but are all here for one reason.
Right.
And so, the first time I came, I was just like, yeah, I'll be back.
Authenticity. So if you're attending other studies because you can't put one together yet organically, and you don't smell authenticity, don't feel bad about getting out. Don't go back. Walk out early. I got to get out of here, right? Whatever. Yeah. So that was part of it. And then also, I think because we don't have a designated leader or preacher or guy, and it's just everyone is kind of joining in with insight and input, then there's not as much pressure, because I say it all the time. If you agree with whoever's leading your study or your church with everything, you just joined a cult, and we don't want ours to smell like a cult. It's amazing how no one is required to come. Nobody gets a sheet signed off. Yeah, you attended for 2 hours. Nobody has to be there. Yeah. But yet they take their Tuesday nights, and we sit there for 90 plus or minus minutes because we want to. And then you always are sure to mention how you just look forward to those Tuesday nights. I do as well. And that's just keep searching until you find that thing. Or I can't believe it took us this long to mention this. Bring this to the Lord in prayer. Like, silly me. Literally, this is the first. You want to know your first action step? Begin praying and say, Lord, please, will you please, dear Lord, please lead me where you'd have me go, because this whole men's study thing, yeah, I want that. We had thought our thing was worth maybe recording and putting out,
right? And
I was a little frustrated at some of the guys that pushed back on that.
Yeah,
it took me a while, but it's almost like now, like I finally had the light bulb go off and realize why. And I think I just said it earlier, but now I'm on their side, okay? I went from thinking like, you bunch of wusses, let's do it, because if you're in Massachusetts, why can't you just eavesdrop on us?
Sure.
And I know why you shouldn't. It's what I said earlier. Podcast, certain level. Okay, church, this much intimacy. And then a little deeper with a podcast, maybe even deeper in the study. And if it's getting recorded, they're going to get shallow. Right?
Well, if you're looking to change your life, right, as a man, and you look at the struggles that you've gone through in your life, and everybody's got one, right? Tribulations of a man. When you look at this Bible study, one of the things like you mentioned, which is so huge, is that we may have this discussion about a scripture, right? And I think one of the things that comes with it is that sometimes we do 6 lines and discuss it for an hour and a half,
right?
Because we're breaking down the scripture, right? But and we're trying to apply it, a scripture from 2,000 years ago, on how it applies to our lives today. What does that actually mean to us sitting here today, right? So when I think about that, and I think about the guys in the study, right? Men need to be held accountable for what they're doing. And so when it comes to the comfort level of what you've gone through, some of the difficulties that you've gone through as a man, and you finally get to this round table, and you see 2 guys in there that you go in, and you know how we hang out on the parking lot afterwards, and all of a sudden you're at Starbucks the next morning at 7:00. You have to find somebody that can hold you accountable for the things that you're doing as a man. Okay, it's something that I've had to do, and so. We can't do this alone. We got to pray about it, but we got to be held accountable by somebody for those weaknesses that we have, whether that's sexual, whatever that thing is, whether that's addiction. But man, I got to tell you, so when I look at, when you filter the Bible study down and you look at what do I get out of this, right? I get this ability to be held accountable. I get this ability to talk about things I could never talk about in church.
Right.
And I just have, and what happens is too, even as a churchgoer for Sunday, we do it on a Tuesday. So Tuesday and Wednesday is midweek. So all of a sudden you're now filling your mind with the Word of God, and you're only 2 or 3 days out from church. So some guys like to do it, 3 days a week where you're saturated. So I think that's one of the most important things you got to look at. It's not just attending a Bible study. It's who do I find that can relate to some crap I got going on.
And because there's no camera there,
yes,
that honesty and forthcoming, if you feel the comfort. And so certainly there should not be a camera there. And it makes you, it's like you even lock the door.
Right. Right.
That's probably more for criminals who are not wandering in or customers, but like you literally, it's 7:00, 7:04. We're always waiting on Jess, right? 7:04, Jess locked the door. It's like, take a deep breath, boys. There's no cameras, no nothing, not getting recorded. And let's just, if you want to, feel open here. And again, that's why I felt so good with you guys years ago that I hijacked the whole thing. You weren't even there, but I'm willing to do it again. Like, I'll hijack that whole thing. And there's been times I started crying in there, and I said, if any of you laugh because I'm crying, I will punch you in your face later. But I'm about to cry. Here goes. But I felt good enough to go ahead and move forward, say what I was going to say, knowing it was going to make me look incredibly vulnerable. And because that's how it is. And the guy is not emotional. Now he's, like I said, he's a fraud and a liar as well. Plus he's got that problem. So,
but you're not but think about what you're saying. Whether, we're reading last night about sexual immorality, and so every guy in there's thinking, okay, that's me. And then, but at the end of the day, if you go to community Bible study, you got a lot of some of these things. It doesn't. That discussion isn't really there.
Right.
You're not finding that, So I just feel like with home Bible study that we're doing, there's just, and it may take time, but I just feel like there's things that are discussed that would never be discussed. And here's the other thing. Think about this. 15 years of doing this Bible study. You know how many people I know? You know how many people that said, oh, I really want to go to that Bible study. I really want to check that out. I really want to check that out. Or, or wives that say, yeah, I'm really trying to get my husband to come to that. You have 15 guys in a place where there's millions of people. Men are afraid. Men are afraid to share. Men are afraid to be held accountable. Mm-hmm. Men are afraid. And when you get to a certain point in your life, man, I got to tell you, when you start giving that up a little bit, and start when if you need it, you need to do something about it. And I just, man,
that seems to me like a redefining strength, because most men say, well, that's weakness. Right. Sitting around in a corner talking about your feelings. Well, okay, what is strength? Doing something that few can do. Therefore, few are doing this thing. Therefore, that's pretty strong. And you are weak because you're doing what everyone else is doing, not coming. So you're the weak one. Like, in other words, if you start to get excited for the things that are strong, things that are of the Lord, then go ahead and be vulnerable. Go ahead and admit you're wrong. Like, that to me, that's next level strength.
100%.
Yeah, so I'm all into it. I think I love the fact that a guy can speak and be vulnerable. It's just super cool to me. So yeah, again, I'm so grateful for all I've got from you guys. And again, if someone has more desires on how do I get this thing going, and you want to contact us
definitely
directly,
reach out. I think I would be more than happy to give you my opinion on things that have worked, things that haven't worked, things to look out for. There's a lot of factors in it, obviously where you're doing it at. So yeah, I mean, highly want you men to reach out to one of us to start something somewhere else would be awesome.
Absolutely. Very cool, gentlemen. That's about it. Like, I literally wanted to give a taste to what a good men's study is like, ours is, and then a topic that's a little tough to talk about that we can address. All right. Thank you, gentlemen. Jess, thank you. RJ, thank you very much.
Awesome.
Much appreciated.
Really good.
All right.
Brother.